Hi, this is Kim from Dorothy's Daughter. Welcome to Friday Sewing School, Lesson 2.2. Today's exciting because we're finally going to start constructing our dress. We're working on the Love Notions Cadence dress, and last week we cut out our fabric after measuring very carefully and checking a few items for fit. Today we're going to transfer our pattern markings to our fabric. We're going to construct our darts. We're going to learn a few pressing techniques. We're going to learn 3 ways to finish a seam. We're going to sew our back seam, our shoulder seams, and we're going to apply interfacing to our facings. So we have a lot to do today. So let's get started. All right, so we have cut out our fabric, and now I'm laying the pieces out, and I'm going to transfer the pattern markings to our pattern. Now I have a variety of marking pens and pencils, but I think the one that will work best on this is this friction pen, which actually goes away with ironing. So I want to mark my darts. These are the dart markings here. And for extra large, which is what I'm making, I'm going to follow this blue line here. We also have notches. These are called notches, and those are just reference points on the pattern itself. Now, what I do is mark them with a pen, with a disappearing pen of some kind. Some people cut them. I get scared to cut them, to be honest with you, because I've cut them further than the seam allowance before, and I don't want to do that. So I'll just use a little pen and mark where that point is. I don't think we'll need to mark our center front for anything on this pattern. Another marking you want to look for, it's not on this pattern, but I'm going to draw it in. A lot of times you will have a circle with a cross through it, which is your bust apex. And so most patterns will have that marked. This one does not. But just so you know what that is when you see it. And then your waistline is marked here, but I am not going to use that either. And then down toward the bottom, there's the point where we sew to for the vented hemline. So I'm going to go ahead and mark my darts. So I'm going to grab a pin, and I'm just going to put it in the point of the dart. Sometimes I have to reach underneath. And then I just sort of lift up and mark where the dart ends. And the blue line is my extra large. Mark that there. And then I need to turn it over and do the same thing on the other side. So I'll use this as a reference. Just transfer those same markings to the other side. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this pin. I have some pattern weights on here just so it didn't fly away on me. But before I do that, I'm actually going to mark this notch. I remember I moved my my arm side because of my narrow shoulder adjustment. So I'm making a mark where it needs to be, but yours would be right at that notch. So I just mark those so that we can line up our facings better. I always mark notches, circles. There's a lot of times points where you need to do something will be marked in circles. I don't mark the apex. It's just on the pattern piece to refer to. But the point of the dart is definitely something you want to be very exact about. So I put the pin in right where it was. So then I just go over and can you see where the pin is there? I just make a mark right where the pin inserts. And then put the pin back in there. I flip it over and do the same on the other side. Kind of do an X marks the spot there. And I'm going to make life hard on myself the way that I did this, but I will now need to transfer the markings to the wrong side of the fabric. I just put them on the right side, which is something that I always do, and it would be so much easier if I would just do it on the wrong side, but I'll fix that. So now I'm going to draw the actual stitch lines for the dart on the wrong side of the fabric. So here's my point and here's my end. So I'm just going to take a ruler and just draw those lines in. And do the other one as well. It makes it very easy later when you draw those in. Okay, so I've transferred my dart markings and my notches and my, which was kind of, I guess it would be a dot, where the side vent begins on the side seam. So next I am going to prepare to sew the dart. So what I'm going to do is bring these lines together and pin. Now keep in mind that you always want to sew a dart from the outside to the point. You never want to start at the point. We want the point not to be, we want the point to be very inconspicuous. I guess that's the best word I can come up with. So then I'm going to find the point, and it's folded in half. I'm going to put a pin here and line it up here. Kind of make sure the seams line up. Put a pin halfway. All right, so now that dart is ready to sew. Now it's best for your sewing machine if you do not sew over pins. So what I'm going to do as I'm sewing, when I get there, I'm going to take a pin out, and you'll see in just a moment I'm going to sew these darts. I'm going to give you a close-up of the machine. You sew this far, pull the pin out, sew this far, pull the pin out, and then you're going to taper this in ever so slightly and then just leave some tails. Okay? I'll see you at the machine in just a moment. So the dart, I'm going to use a straight stitch. I'm going to adjust my stitch to be about 2.6 tight, but not too tight. And put the needle down in the fabric, sew a straight line right along the dart marking. Removing pins as I get to them. Remove this last pin, go all the way out, and I'm just going to raise up the needle and leave myself a long enough tail to tie. And then I'm just going to grab these two threads and tie them in a gentle knot at the end. Okay, then we're going to take and press the darts down. And you can see our markings went completely away with the iron. Those heat erasable markers are awesome. There's one dart. Let's go ahead and press the other one down. I'm going to go down towards the skirt. Now you can use a pressing ham if you have one. I tend to not grab it for darts because it's not that hard to get them. Okay, so now you have the front darts constructed. I'm going to give this a little press on the right side. Next, we're going to go ahead and pin our center back seam together. So you take your two back pieces, just line them up, and place pins all the way down. Make sure you're pinning right sides together. Sewn your center back seam and your shoulder seams, you're going to want to press them before you finish the edges. So you're either going to press them to one side, leaving a nice open finish on the back. That if you're going to finish them together in one of those methods, like with the Seams Great tape or the overlocker, or if you're going to do each individual side, you would want to press these seams open. Since this is a 3/8 seam allowance, I would suggest that you just finish them together. So if you don't have a serger, I'm going to show you a couple different ways to finish your seams because they don't fray. Because if you don't do anything, the fabric will fray and then you will end up with an unwearable garment. So the first way I'm going to show you is to just use your zigzag on your machine. Just choose a normal zigzag and just go ahead and zigzag down the raw edge of each side of the seam. So that's one way. Another thing you can do to finish your seams is to use, if you have an overlocker stitch of some kind on your machine. This doesn't do the same as a serger, but if you just take the edges of your seam, you can actually do this either with them pressed together and trimmed, or you can do each side and just go on down and go ahead and just lock them together like that. And that's what that stitch looks like. Another way is this stuff called Seams Great. I used to use this before I had a serger. And I'll put a link to some down below. But it is a product that is very lightweight. It doesn't add any bulk. And what you do is you trim your seams down, and then it will kind of wrap on its own if you just get it started. You just kind of wrap it around the seam, set it on a zigzag, and just let it sort of wrap over your raw edges, and then zigzag it on. This is how sorry for the garbage truck noise, my window's open. Real life, folks. This is how I used to finish my seams before I bought my serger. It makes a really neat seam allowance and adds very, very little bulk. And that's what that, whoop, there we go. And that is what that looks like. So it doesn't add any bulk at all, but it is, it's a nice, finishes your seams very well. So those are a couple different ways you can finish your raw edges if you don't have a serger. If you do have a serger, then you know how wonderful they are and how awesome it is to be able to just trim your seams and serge them at the same time. Okay, so you have your interfacing that you've purchased. This is SF101 by Pellon from, they sell it at Joann Fabrics. I buy it by the bolt, so mine may look a little different than yours, but it is the same product. I actually found a bolt at overstock.com at a very reasonable price. If you were doing a lot of sewing, you might want to consider. So I'm going to lay the facing pieces down on the fold. This is the back. I'm going to go ahead and put my pattern weights on there. I don't have one close by, so I'll just use my pin thing. So then you're just going to go ahead and cut out the facing pieces. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with the front piece. All right, I have laid my front facing down wrong side up on the ironing board, and I have placed the interfacing piece on top of it with the rough side down, the side with the glue, down toward the wrong side of the fabric. And now what we're going to do, even that up there. Now what we're going to do is apply it with a hot iron. You want to look at the directions on your interfacing. I use a wet press cloth. And then you're going to want to press down with a nice firm pressure for about 15 seconds. I'm going to go ahead and speed it up while I do the rest. And then you're simply going to take the back and the back facing piece and do the exact same thing. Glue side down onto the wrong side of the fabric and just apply it. So you're going to want to let your interfacing sort of cure on that fabric. So this is probably a good point for us to stop today. If you like, though, I think what might be nice for us to do is to go ahead and sew the shoulder seams of the main garment. And then once we do that, we will just let our facings cure and pick up next time. This This pattern uses 3/8 inch seams. And so we're just going to go ahead and sew the shoulder seams. And repeat the same thing with the other side. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. Please feel free, as always, to email me questions or comment below. I hope that your dress is shaping up to be everything you hope it will be. I would love to see your creations. If you want to post a so far image on Instagram and tag Friday Sewing School, I would absolutely love to see your creations and how you're coming along. Next week, we'll go ahead and we'll actually complete our dress. So I'm excited to wear mine. I really love how it turned out, and I know yours will too. Have a great day.